They left you behind because they thought you were done. They mistook silence for surrender, stillness for weakness, and delay for denial. But the truth is, God wasn't ignoring you. He was forging you. While they ran ahead, chasing comfort, you were buried under the weight of trials no one saw. You didn't get soft. You got scarred. You didn't break. You burned. The waiting wasn't punishment. It was preparation. You were locked in a cage with your demons, and you didn't run. You made them kneel. The fire didn't consume you. It carved you into steel. Every unanswered prayer, every sleepless night, every door slammed in your face was sacred. You weren't delayed. You were deployed. Just not yet. They buried you because they didn't know you were seed. They thought silence meant death, but beneath the soil, you were splitting open with power. They moved on while you stood still, not knowing stillness was where God taught you war. While they flexed for applause, you were breaking in sacred places no one dared look. You were bleeding on floors no one prayed on, learning how to roar without making a sound. You didn't lose your voice. You were learning to speak with presence. The kind that doesn't need noise to shake the earth. You became intimate with your own pain until it no longer scared you. That's what makes you dangerous now. Pain doesn't move you, it obeys you. You were forged in abandonment. Now you rise as command. They couldn't see the furnace, only the pause. But you were in the place where God makes his fiercest weapons, alone, uncelebrated on fire. And while you cried in silence, heaven was counting every tear like ammunition. The world laughed at your fall. God called it fallow ground. They never knew you weren't stuck. You were planted deep. Rooted not in rage, but in righteousness, sharpened by suffering. While they sprinted on sand, you built a foundation under pressure. And now, when the winds come, guess who crumbles? Not you. You don't move with the storm. You command it. They were chasing thrones. You were becoming one. They wanted a name. You became a presence. Every second they gained in speed, they lost in depth. And you dug so deep that even hell had to pause and respect your process. You learned to breathe underwater, to fight in silence, to win without witnesses. There's a war language in you now, one that only the broken understand. The ones who came back different, the ones who didn't, need saving because they became the answer to their own prayers. That's you now. Not the survivor, the storm the fire built. So let them think you're still behind. Let them sleep while you sharpen. Let them run while you rise slow. The day you take your first step forward, the ground will remember it. The sky will go quiet, and even your enemies will feel it in their bones. Because what God kept hidden is now awake. And it's walking. Your delay wasn't distance, it was depth. They aimed for quick. God aimed for eternal. And now, you don't walk into the fight, you end it. They wanted fast. God made you eternal. They built speed. God built storm. He buried you in the dark, not to end you, but to grow something the light couldn't handle. You weren't meant to bloom quickly. You were meant to erupt. Pain didn't poison you. It primed you. The delay wasn't a detour. It was a trap. God lured your enemies into a false sense of victory while you sharpened in silence. The world forgot you existed, but the heavens didn't. You were being watched, not by men, but by war angels, waiting for the moment. And that moment is now sharpening in your chest like a blade. They prayed for quick victories. You were built for final ones. They were microwave made. You were pressure cooked in divine fire. They got what they wanted early, and now they're fading. But you were built to outlast everything, even the grave. God didn't make you viral, he made you vital. There's a storm coiled in your spirit that doesn't need crowds to explode. While they age in public, you are aging in purpose. Every second of delay gave your roots time to reach hell and come back with fire. You don't just walk with strength, you drag centuries of divine delay behind you. You're not here to compete. You're here to conquer. You are not fast. You are inevitable. God wasn't trying to make you impressive. He was making you immovable. The ones who laughed at your silence will choke on your sound. They were trained in applause. You were trained in absence. And absence is where God crafts killers of kingdoms and architects of aftermath. You are not here to react. You are here to rewrite. They counted you out because they couldn't count eternity. You don't move with clocks. You move with callings. That's why your presence feels like prophecy fulfilled. Because it is. You didn't miss the moment. You became the moment. Every delay etched a layer of thunder in your voice. You speak now, and the atmosphere knows who you are. You command attention without requesting it. You bring stillness like a blade resting on skin. Calm, cold, and ready. God didn't rush you because he wasn't finished. And what he starts, he finishes with fire. So while they wanted fast wins, you were made for final judgments. You're not a comeback story. You're the consequence of everything that tried to stop you. And consequences don't ask. They arrive. You were God's slowest work and his most dangerous. Not because you're loud, but because you're unmoved. You outgrew approval, outran pride, outlasted storms. Your existence is an act of divine warfare now. Every breath you take is a war drum in the spirit realm. You don't need permission to step into your purpose. You are the permission. Let fast men fade. Let loud men fall. You're still here, and you're still rising. Because the delay wasn't about them. It was about building someone the world couldn't break. You stopped begging. You started building. You stopped crying. You started calculating. There is a violence in you now, but it's holy. Not reckless rage, but sacred power. You don't need revenge. You are the lesson. Let them talk. Let them laugh. Let them forget. They don't realize they just gave God more time with you. And time with God creates monsters the world isn't ready for. You weren't delayed because you were weak. You were delayed because your rise needed silence. You used to cry out asking why. Now you build in silence, knowing exactly who. You don't reach for help anymore. You reach for the hammer. What they thought would leave you hollow only made you holy. You don't flinch at the fire. You feed on it. There's a rhythm in you now, built from trauma, beaten into you by time. You're not fueled by hope. You're fueled by knowing that God was never late. He was just getting you lethal. You're no longer praying to be rescued. You're praying to be released. You've become the very weapon you once asked God to send. And the world isn't ready for the impact. They thought you were still healing, but healing turned into harvesting. You planted pain in soil and grew discipline. Every breakdown became blueprints. Every scar, a signature from heaven. You no longer avoid suffering. You schedule it, because you've seen what it births when it's endured in silence. You don't explain your process anymore. You let your presence speak. They hear your footsteps now like echoes of judgment. You walk light, but your past marches with you like an army. You didn't just rise, you resurrected. And that resurrection wasn't gentle. It was vengeance with a heartbeat. You were never the victim. They just caught you mid-transformation. You are not just strong, you're sacred and sharpened. God gave you silence as armor, gave you delay as a forge. You don't seek comfort anymore. You seek clarity in chaos, because that's where you were born. They mistook your quiet season for weakness. But that quiet bred chaos in the right direction, the kind that flips tables and rewrites legacies. You are no longer who they left behind. You are who they'll wish they never underestimated. Let them think you're still the same. That version of you doesn't even exist anymore. You don't walk like a man. You walk like unfinished prophecy. Like something heaven started and hell couldn't stop. This is no longer personal. It's divine. You are a vessel of vengeance, wrapped in wisdom. You don't chase legacy. You become legend. And every second you were delayed was just God stepping back to say, watch what I do with this one. Now, it's your turn. You are not the same. You walk like thunder now, Still, heavy, unshakable. The man who once begged for purpose now breathes it like fire. You don't pray for a lighter burden, you pray for a sharper sword. You don't run from trials, you walk straight into them, calm as a god of war. They don't know how many nights you died and got back up anyway. They don't know how many times you whispered to God through clenched teeth. Not yet. But soon. Now soon has arrived, and you are the storm they never prepared for. You're not trying to prove anything. You're just becoming what pain demanded. And God? God smiles at what he made of you. You used to flinch when life struck you. Now you stare it down like a beast waiting to feed. You no longer kneel in weakness. You kneel in reverence to the war God birthed inside you. They can't recognize you because the old you didn't survive the fire. You buried him. You don't need a second chance. You became a second creation. The man they knew prayed to be spared. The man you are now prays to be sent. And when you enter a room, the atmosphere bends. Not because you're loud, but because you're real. You're made of the storm that tried to kill you. You walk with shadows behind you, not as threats, but as servants. You don't carry fear anymore. You carry fire. You used to ask God for clarity. Now you walk without it, because faith made you feral. You don't hesitate. You advance, with blood memory and heaven's fury in your eyes. There's a death in you now. Not yours, but anything that dares to stand against your calling. You don't ask if you're ready. You already know. You were born for war. And when doubt creeps in, you don't argue with it. You drag it by the throat back into the silence that made you. You don't cry for peace anymore. You are the price peace costs. And when others break, you bend the world around your will, not out of ego, but because you've earned it in blood. God didn't give you a way out. He gave you a way through. You don't tell your story anymore. It speaks without permission. It's written in the way you breathe, the way you move. Every motion speaks of nights you didn't think you'd survive, but did. And now that strength lives in your spine like iron. You don't smile for approval. You smile because you know what it costs to be here. They think you're quiet, but that's only because they don't speak your frequency. You move like prophecy with scars, like war wrapped in silence. And when you speak, the world doesn't just listen, it braces. You're no longer finding your path, you're paving it with thunder. And God didn't just mold you, he unleashed you. What once was shame is now your sacred armor. What once was heartbreak is now your holy rhythm. You are not healed, you are rebuilt, and rebuilt things don't break the same. You carry weight in your presence that no crown could match. The throne is in your footsteps, not your title. And every enemy that laughed at your delay is now watching you become the storm that never needed their permission. You are the unspoken terror in their dreams, the quiet before divine collision. God didn't just delay you, he preserved you, so when the time came, you would devour everything in your way. They thought you were waiting for opportunity. You were actually waiting for orders. You don't speak like you used to. There's iron in your voice now. You don't walk like you used to. Your steps carry consequence. Every scar is a scripture. Every loss, a prophecy fulfilled. You are no longer a question. You are an answer with blood on it. The battlefield is not a place anymore. It's who you are. This world isn't ready for the kind of holy fury that lives in your bones. Let them tremble when they hear your name, because God delayed you to make you dangerous. You were never chasing chance. You were becoming the consequence. They sprinted toward the spotlight while you became the shadow that haunts their peace. They had opportunities. You became obedience made flesh. You weren't sitting idle. You were listening to the voice that thundered inside the silence. Every time they rushed forward, you fell to your knees, not in defeat, but in discipline. You didn't wait for doors. You trained to break them. You didn't knock. You prepared to kick them down with prophecy in your chest. Now, When you walk in, the ground remembers the weight of your prayers. Not pretty prayers, desperate ones, bloody ones, dangerous ones. You weren't waiting to win. You were waiting to be unleashed. There's a divine dread that follows men like you. Because people don't understand what happens when a man survives everything meant to kill him. You don't speak to be heard, you speak to command. And every word you release is laced with the dirt of your resurrection. You weren't built in church aisles. You were built in deserts, in cages, in midnight screams. Your strength isn't polished. It's primal. You don't walk in rooms to fit in. You walk in to finish them. What they call energy, you call presence. What they call vibe, you call vengeance baptized in silence. God didn't delay you for the applause. He delayed you for the earthquake. You are the result of holy restraint. A weapon God held back until the day he got tired of watching evil win. You don't need crowds, you need clearance. And now that heaven has cleared you, hell is shaking. You don't panic, you prepare. You don't react, you reign. Your every step is a declaration. I'm not who I was, and I never will be again. Let them stare, let them wonder, let them fear, because they have every reason to. You're not just a man, you are God's delayed fury in human form, and your time has detonated. You weren't left behind, you were set apart. You didn't miss out. You were measured for something greater. They rose fast, but you rise forever. Because what God delays, he doesn't diminish, he destines. So now you don't walk like a soldier. You move like a sent storm. You carry sacred violence, measured, holy righteous. You're not a motivational quote. You are the scripture they forgot to fear. God didn't delay you so you'd arrive late. He delayed you so when you did arrive, nothing could survive your presence. And now, it's too late for them to prepare. And now, you walk not just as a man, but as prophecy fulfilled. Your delay was not denial. It was divine design etched in eternity. Every second you were hidden, heaven was preparing your enemies for defeat. You are no longer asking when, you are becoming the answer. You carry wrath and mercy in equal hands, and both will bow to your presence. This world doesn't need more noise. It needs you unleashed in full silence and fury. The chains they thought would bind you are now wrapped around your fists like sacred brass. You're not just rising, you are reigning. Your delay was your awakening. And now, every step you take will echo like thunder across time. You're not just walking. You're fulfilling ancient echoes. Your footsteps are answers to prayers your bloodline cried out generations ago. They tried to stop you but didn't know who started you. And what God starts, no man, no devil, no delay can silence. You're not here to be celebrated. You're here to shift timelines. There is gravity in your gaze now, weight in your stillness. When you pause, the atmosphere listens. When you move, reality rearranges. Because prophecy doesn't ask permission, it erupts. And you are the eruption wrapped in flesh. You are the word spoken in heaven and sharpened in hell. You carry the wrath of answered silence. You wear the armor of every not yet turned now. Your shadow doesn't follow you, it warns them. You are not stepping into rooms, you are stepping into destiny. They prayed for change. God built it in you. You are the seed of fire planted in the soil of suffering. Your fruit isn't peace, it's presence that demands order. You don't walk like a man chasing greatness. You walk like greatness put on skin and decided to go to war. Every glance you cast now judges false kings. Let others talk. You have nothing left to prove, only something left to unleash. You are not driven by ambition. You are possessed by assignment. You are a walking verdict to every force that tried to bury you, not in revenge, but in righteous resolve. You breathe as one who knows the war is already won. They see your scars as history. You wear them as proof of resurrection. You are the calm before the divine reckoning. Your voice, a trumpet. Your hands, a flood. You don't chase purpose, you embody it. And now the world has to adjust to your rise. You don't fear time anymore. You walk in it like a king walks in his kingdom. Delay was never your enemy. It was your enlistment. And now that you've arrived, no man can stand where you were, called to reign. They thought they were ahead, but God hid you in eternity's furnace. And now, you emerge not just forged, but foretold. You are not late. You are right on time to end everything false. This is the sound of prophecy walking, of justice with breath. You no longer chase identity, you walk as evidence, because when God delayed you, he was making the end begin with you.